All right. Thank you for coming today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Keaton Moore, and contrary to what the program says, my presentation is called My Call, the Sports Field. And below you'll see my portfolio site can be found at keatonamore.com, where you can see my resume, job experience, and samples of my work. And so before I give my presentation, I want to give out a shout out to my family. They showed up. They got in the car and left this morning at 7 a.m. And I've been up since 7, and I can hardly keep my eyes open, so I don't know how they're doing it. But I wouldn't be standing here giving this presentation, preparing for college, or graduation really, if it wasn't for your constant love and support. So thank you. Can't thank you enough for that. And so I want to start off by asking just a general question. How many of you have gone on a missions trip before? Yes, you, the tall one in the front. Where have you gone on a missions trip?
I went to Los Angeles.
What'd you do there?
It was an evangelism trip, and we helped out with pastors.
Awesome. All right. And so my next question is, who thinks they traveled the farthest on a missions trip? Who thinks they can beat Los Angeles? Because I know the Giants can. But who's gone farther than Los Angeles? All right. You in the back.
I've been to Mexico.
You've been to Mexico. What have you done in Mexico? Sweet. That's awesome. Who else? Who thinks they've traveled farther than Mexico? No one. Oh, yes, over there. Dominican Republic. All right, what did you do? I'm going with little kids. Awesome. All right. Do we have any other takers? Who's gone farther than the Dominican Republic? Yes. All right. Perfect. What did you do over there? Okay, that's awesome. Well, we have a winner, unless someone else has traveled a mile past Iceland. And let me ask this other question. By show of hands, how many of you know someone or personally feel called to a life on missions? Anyone know someone? All right. Well, like you or the people you might know, I too feel called to a life on missions, but not overseas or in a foreign country, rather in the sports industry. You see, my call is not only to work as a baseball sports writer, but also use the position I have to share the love of God through the way I go about my work in the sports industry, a place that is in desperate need of Christ. And for a long time I tried figuring out what I wanted to do and what God wanted for my life, especially after college. I thought to myself, I'll figure it out. In high school I would try to think of it like this. I was like, man, I think I'll just wait until my senior year and I'll figure it out then. And sure enough, I graduated in 2013 knowing only two things for sure. I loved baseball and I was better at English than any other subjects I took. And it was not long after spending my first summer working up at Hume Lake Christian Camps that I realized that I could combine those two loves and two strengths of mine and began pursuing a career in sports journalism. And now I have a clear idea of what I want to do as a career and after college. I know that God has been preparing me and will continue to prepare me to be an impactful influence to the sinful environment that is the sports industry. And as many of you basketball fans may recognize, this man is Ernie Johnson. EJ has been working in sports for a very long time and has been a host on NBA on TNT since 1990. For some context, I was born in 95, so now he's been working there for a very long time, if that's the amount of time you want to, yeah. And so after a few days after Donald Trump was elected president, during the show he made an inspirational monologue on live television and in the company of Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley, who both even the loosest basketball fans know are not known for living their lives in accordance to Christ. And so, here's what he said. Here we go. Now that it's working, let's check it out.
When this campaign season started, I felt like I'd been dealt a bad hand. I had these couple of choices. And there were trust issues with Hillary Clinton I couldn't get past. And there was this inflammatory rhetoric from Donald Trump, which to me was incomprehensible and indefensible. I could vote for either one. For the first time in going to the polls for 42 years, I hit the write-in button, and I voted for John Kasich. And I left knowing that John Kasich wasn't going to win, but I left with a clear conscience because I hadn't settled. Number two, I'm hopeful. I watched the video today at CNN on what's going on at the White House with Donald Trump, President Obama. I was hopeful and I was encouraged that there will be a difference between the President Trump and the campaigning Trump. And I'm with these guys. We have to give them a chance. But here's the deal. I just hope that he's all in fixing the wounds in this country and the divides that separate this country. And I want to be part of that too. And for me to be part of it, I have to look in the mirror and I have to say, how am I going to be a better man? How am I going to be a better neighbor? How am I going to be a better citizen? How am I going to be a better American? How can I be a fountain and not a drain? And number three, I know you're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, but we're already talking about politics, and so I'm going to go the R direction too. I never know from one election to the next who's going to be in the Oval Office, but I always know who's on the throne. And I'm on this earth because God created me, and that's who I answer to. I'm a Christian. I follow this guy named Jesus. You might have heard of him. And the greatest commandment he gave me was to love others. And Scripture also tells us to pray for our leaders. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray for Donald Trump. I'm going to pray for all those people right now who feel like they're on the outside looking in, who are afraid at this point. Pray for them too. In short, I'm praying for America. And I'm praying that one day we're going to look back and we're going to say, you know what? That Donald Trump presidency, that was all right. But I'm praying.
So I want that to settle in for a second, because what EJ did could have easily been journalism suicide. Without a doubt, if EJ said that at any point in his career, he runs the serious risk of losing his job. So what makes him different? Well, it's his reputation of hard work and high morals that earned him his ability to speak out so boldly about politics and Christ and yet keep his job. Biola isn't an exception to this, but as EJ pointed out in this video, many secular journalism schools teach you that you should avoid voicing your opinion on touchy subjects such as politics and religion, and let those biases get in the way, unless your job permits you to do so. And I don't know about you, but it's my guess that in recent years, especially 2017, that many people are watching NBA on TNT and other sports shows to forget about the tension in politics and religion in our world today. And yet I hope to be a light to those I work alongside with in the sports industry and have the courage to boldly speak out as EJ did. And you know, as I said earlier, the sports industry is an industry that is in desperate need of Christ and has very little Christian influence. I was lucky enough to work 2 different summers in the California Collegiate League, where I got to see 2 very different sides of the sports industry. Following my freshman year of college, I worked as the sports information director with the San Luis Obispo Blues Baseball Club. It was the secular atmosphere of the Blues that gave me my first taste of how fallen the baseball world can be. My fellow employees regularly went out to drink and party after the games. And I specifically remember one time there was a 16-inning game that, you know, by the time we got out of there, after we cleaned up the stadium, packed up our stuff, and met after the game, it was around 1:45 or 2 in the morning. And yet that didn't stop my coworkers from staying true to their plans to hit the town. And I remember the next day, I was the only one remotely close to being awake for that next game, because they were out partying and drinking till the sun came up. And so even my boss partook in these post-game celebrations occasionally, and they lived in a way that was not reflective of Christ. And although I've lost contact with pretty much all of them, I hope that the way I went about my work and turned down their requests to go out with them showed them the image of Christ. 2 summers later, I worked the same job, only this time I worked with the Southern California Catch, a Christian-affiliated team, and ironically the same team that the Blues beat in that 16-inning battle 2 years ago. Unlike my time with the Blues, the team and the people I worked with not only desired to further their job experience and attract the attention of scouts, but also further their relationship with God. It was amazing seeing how God used our summer schedule to impact the teams and players that we came in contact with. Whether we were at home, we actually played at Biola, we played here, and whether we were hosting a team here or on the road, anywhere from Concordia University down south or all the way up to SLO, people would come up to us and ask us, like, hey, like, what does FCA mean on your uniforms, or what does that logo mean on your polos? And in that way, we had the opportunity to tell them not only what it meant, and not only tell them that, oh, it stands for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, but it opened the door for us to tell them what we believed in and why we wore those uniforms and had that logo on our shirts. And you know what? Too often I find myself assuming the worst, that when I share the gospel, my mind immediately goes to the worst case scenario of, man, if I share Christ with this person, they're going to flip out at me and start yelling at me and say I'm a hypocrite and all these different things. Or worse, they present an argument that I know in my heart is wrong, but I don't have the eloquency or the knowledge to be able to properly present my side. But my time with the Catch helped shatter that image that I had of worst case scenario and showed me just the power of being able to, the results that can come from boldly sharing your faith. Not to say that my worst case scenario won't happen, but it was incredible seeing the fruit that came even in those worst case scenarios. And in conclusion, I want to leave you with this story. In Mark 5, 1 through 20, Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. How many of you guys have heard this story before? I mean, yeah, a story about a demon-possessed man is not exactly the kind of story you want your children hearing in Sunday school, but nonetheless, we've heard about it all the same. And the story ends with the man trying to get in the boat and follow Jesus on his journey, but Jesus stops him. And verse 19 says, "And he did not permit him, but said to him, 'Go to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you.' And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled." And you know what? For some of us, God's plan involved us going out, getting in the boat, and sharing the gospel with people in distant places. For others, like me, I feel called to be like the man in Mark 5. And I feel that God is calling me to spread the gospel with the people I interact with in the sports industry and the people I come in contact with, because it's a place that is in desperate need of Christ, and given the opportunity, I will be able to share my love of Christ with them and be able to be a light in that industry. And I hope to one day have the boldness and reputation to be able to speak boldly on Christ and my opinions and share my faith with others as EJ did. And that was my presentation. Thank you.